It is not coincidental that the most liberal or left-wing state in the country provides this story. I read it to you. It's from Fox News. Parents across Massachusetts are upset over new rules that would not only allow transgender students to use their restrooms of their choice, but would also punish students who refuse to affirm or support their transgender classmates. Before I read on, you have to understand something. The term transgender is used, and I have pointed this out, and it's never pointed out, and it's a sleight of hand that is dishonest. Transgender is not the same thing as transsexual. Transsexual means I change my sex. So when they use transgender, they are using the transsexual to get your sympathy, but transgender to obliterate gender. Get it? LGBT, the T is transgender, not transsexual. I continue. Last week, the Massachusetts Department of Education issued directives for handling transgender students, including allowing them to use the bathrooms of their choice or to play on sports teams that correspond to the gender with which they identify. Get it? With which they identify. So all one needs to say, and this is literally true, all one needs to say at a public school in Massachusetts. I don't know if this, I don't think it would apply to private schools, but it would be reason enough to take your kid out of public school in Massachusetts, in my opinion. A kid who is confused or just wants to play with the issue. Boy says, I feel like I'm a girl. He goes into the girls' restroom, girls' locker room, and plays on girls' teams. He doesn't have to do anything other than say that. Now, and it's worse than that, as you will hear in the article. He can be a boy at home and a girl at school. And here it gets even worse. Teachers are forbidden by this rule to tell parents what gender their child identifies with at school. So what the left is doing here is this general war on distinctions. This time it's male-female. And also a war on parental authority. So if your boy comes to school and says, I'm a girl, you can't tell the parents that that's what your boy is doing. They may find it a little odd to see him, but they wouldn't go to a girls' game, you see? So they wouldn't even know. The 11-page directive also urged schools to eliminate gender-based clothing and gender-based activities, like having boys and girls line up separately to leave the classroom. No more of that. No more. Schools will now be required to accept the student's gender identity on face value. A student who says she is a girl and wishes to be regarded that way throughout the school day and throughout every or almost every other area of her life should be respected and treated like a girl, the guidelines stipulate. Remember, this is from the Massachusetts Department of Education. Departments of Education rarely educate. They are there to further the most dynamic religion's agenda, and that is the agenda of leftism. And obliterating distinctions is a big part of it. They don't like distinct nations. They want us to all be world citizens. They don't like the distinction between good and evil. Everything is a matter of personal opinion. They don't like the distinction between male and female. It is a war against distinctions. That is this overwhelmingly the basic reason that I am against redefining marriage, because it obliterates gender distinction. Marriage is marriage. It's irrelevant, the gender. Gender is irrelevant. That's part of this larger framework of making gender irrelevant. I told you, it's pervasive. New York University, Google Plus, they had me sign up, and it was gender MFO, male, female, other. Soon it will be MF. My predictions on these things, unfortunately, are accurate. It will be MFON, male, female, other, none. The head of at Harvard, they just appointed somebody who does not claim to be male or female, holding that is too restrictive. Get it? Where they make distinctions, the left, like in race, that's where distinctions don't matter. Where distinctions do matter, male, female, that's where they wish to obliterate them. If you have come across this in your child's school or anywhere else, this war on gender, war on sex differences, I'd be very interested. Or if you think it's a non-issue, give me a call, 1-8-PRAGER-776, 877-243-7776. This is so big that it is impossible, in my opinion, to overstate the brave new world that we are entering. When I think about what people are panicked about, carbon emissions, this is just driving the world crazy. The left is driving the world crazy on this because of sea level rises that may occur, according to computer models, in 50 years. Meanwhile, right now, before your eyes, and this is the most dramatic yet because it's an entire state Board of Education, Massachusetts, any student must now be free, talking elementary school and high school, to say, I am male or I am female, irrespective of what they are biologically. That's it. Then boys can play on girls' teams because they have said, I feel like a girl. And even if they live like a boy at home, they can say that in school. I've given to you over the time all of these schools that have homecoming queens who are male, homecoming kings who are female. And this is another horrible legacy that the baby boomers are leaving the next generation, along with a spectacular debt for things they got. All right, let's go to Matt in Chicago. Hello, Matt. Dennis Prager.
Hey, Dennis. Love the show. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
I think it's interesting. I didn't read the article, but from what you described, and I'm definitely paraphrasing now, there's a contradiction in terms to the point that it seems like pure nonsense what they're talking about, because they say that if a child wants to be thought of as a girl or wants to be thought of as a boy, then he or she should be treated as such. And the contradiction is that what does it even mean to be treated as a girl if the distinction is...
Well, that's right. That's right. I agree with you. And gradually, that this is the move on the way to obliteration. Everybody will be neither. And you can even change based on your feelings. Remember, leftism is feelings-based. I feel I'm a girl, I'm a girl. I feel I'm a boy, I'm a boy. And from now on, that will be the ideal. You don't feel like either necessarily.
Understood. Well, it's a scary place we're headed.
Well, it is a scary. That's I want to scare you. How often have I said that? Thank you, Matt. How often I have spent most of my 30 years broadcasting saying you're being scared by X, by Y, by Z. Don't get scared. And I had a big to-do about that when I broadcast that people should not worry about heterosexual AIDS in the United States, that it was a hyped-up, basically a lie. And it was a lie. Of course it exists, but we told that it would be an epidemic. Remember, AIDS doesn't discriminate, that stuff? I just feel sorry. I feel sorry for kids today. I do. What the baby boomer left has bequeathed to them is so sad. The debt in economics, the student debt loans for a worthless degree in most cases, and now utter and total confusion. The elevation of confusion into an ideal. You are liberated from your biology if you don't identify as male or female, or identify as the other sometimes, or as one the other times. Let's go to Mike in El Segundo, California. Hello, Mike. Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. I appreciate all the great work you've done on your show and in your books. And I know you've shown that there seems to be a common denominator on leftist ideology and their political agenda that seems to be based on equality. I don't think that's the main basis for the ideology. I think that's sort of a catalyst or an excuse they use to promote their true agenda. It seems to me that leftists are literally at war with Western civilization.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western civ has got to go. And it's gone, by the way. In most colleges, that's not what they teach, because they call that Eurocentric.
Okay, and that's why there's very notable inconsistencies in their so-called search for equality. I'll give several examples. One is certainly with firearms, because firearms are, for example, the great equalizer. It makes a small, weak woman or elderly person.
But the problem there is it runs against the great value of the all-powerful government and state. If the state is powerful, you can't be. And
okay,
power.
Another example.
Go ahead. Yep.
Another example is Islamism and these Islamist or Muslim majority countries where they're misogynist. There's really no such thing.
It doesn't matter to the left. It doesn't matter, because they both have a common enemy, the United States and Israel.
And Western civilization. They view the United States and Israel as being the leaders or at the forefront of protecting Western civilization.
That's correct, and they're right. So it's not inconsistent. It's not. I know what you're saying. Well, but if equality, yes, if they really believed in equality, they would be the most gung-ho supporters of the war in Afghanistan in the United States. Because if the Taliban take over, girls have acid thrown in their faces if they attend school. That's correct. How do you like the gay left, who support the Palestinians against Israel? There's a gay parade in Tel Aviv, and gays are arrested in the Arab world. So, yes, you're right. You're right. Ultimately, Western civilization is a nuisance to be overcome, and that is the obliteration of gender identity, as they call it. Massachusetts, please understand, this is a statewide ruling of the Department of Education. I read it to you from their guidelines. A student who says she is a girl and wishes to be regarded that way throughout the school day should be respected and treated like a girl. According to the Department of Education of Massachusetts, transgender students are those whose assigned birth sex does not match their internalized sense of their gender. They said gender nonconforming students, quote, range in the ways in which they identify as male, female. Now listen to this. Some combination of both or neither. Rob, where do you fall in on that? Male, female, some combination of both or neither?
I'd say male.
You would say male? Well, now you have four choices, though. I want you to go home and think about it today, all right? You may not have addressed this issue sufficiently. The responsibility for determining a student's gender identity rests with the student, the guidelines dictate. One's gender identity is an innate, largely inflexible characteristic of each individual's personality that is generally established by age 4. That means that in Massachusetts, if you're 5 and you're a boy and say you feel like a girl, then you go and act like one, or you go to the girls' room, or you play in the girls' sports, but it's true in high school too. The person best situated to determine a student's gender identity is that student himself or herself. And they should continue to say, or both or neither. Remember, Harvard has now hired a neither to run a certain bisexual or a transgender, it may be just a GLBT whole program. Remember, you have administrators who now do that. They make a lot of money. Look in my book, the listing for the, what is it, University of California, San Diego, or is it San Diego State? I don't remember which one. Yeah, you don't realize, and I'm pressing the panic button here. And I hate panic. I told you. That's the thing I most fear in a plane incident, on an airplane, that is. The panic. And I hate it. But here, get worried, my friends. Andy, Chandler, Arizona. Hi.
Hey, Mr. Prager. Good to talk to you again. So I think it's a week from today here in the city of Phoenix. They are going to be putting up a vote for it. They present it as an anti-gay discrimination bill, but part of it includes outlawing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, which is fine, and gender identity or expression.
Yep.
So I guess if I worked for the city, I could go to work as a woman or dressed in women's clothes and go to the women's bathroom and not have a problem anymore.
Well, of course that's right. That's exactly what you can do.
And it's disgusting.
Well, it's worth noting that's Phoenix, and that's considered a relatively conservative place. Well, Arizona is. Any major urban area is not going to be conservative. These students, because of widespread misunderstanding and lack of knowledge about their lives, that are a higher risk of peer ostracism, victimization, and bullying, the document read. Yep. What do you think? Would you like your kids to go to a school? And just tell me. If you're a liberal, do you want your kids to go to a school where they during the day, any child can say, I feel like, and they say which sex, and that's how they have to be called? You must call the child by whatever name the child changes to, or you are written up. I have no doubt, I am as certain as I am of anything, that this will be calamitous for humans. This war to obliterate male-female distinction. See, gradually what is happening, in Sweden, I have read to you Swedish schools and parents who are now raising kids as long as they can without referring to them as a male or female. They give them a new name that is neither male nor female. They dress them alternately in boys' and girls' clothing. They do not say he or she or him or her. They have some other word that they use in Swedish. And it's all in the radical egalitarianism of leftism. Once again, the most dynamic religion in the world, way more dynamic in the last century than Christianity or Islam, not to mention Judaism and Buddhism. And so this is part of it. What are you? See, if leftism has its way, think about what your identity will be. You won't have a national identity because it's against nationalism. You'll be a world citizen. You won't have a gender identity because that's entirely fluid and subjective. You won't have a religious identity because religions divide and religion is nonsense to the left. So you will have no identity. All right, let's go to some more of your calls here. Columbus, Ohio, and Jeremy. Is that right? Jeremy, hi.
Hi, Craig. Glad to be on. I'm trying to sit here and take in the absurdity of all this and figure out exactly where is this going and why, and is it going to come down to, as a white guy, I feel more in tune with an African-American race, and I can just assume that identity too? Or, it's just the absurdity.
No, apparently the only fixed thing for the left is race, and the only important identity is racial. All other identities are insignificant, including the latest gender identity. But you're right. Why should, you're right. Why, if biology doesn't determine gender identity, your question's a very good one, Jeremy. Why should it determine racial identity? What if I feel black?
Yeah, that's how I feel, because we're erasing everything anyways. Why can't I, assume anything?
Well, right, and the left says that they're, blacks who vote Republican are really acting white. Newsweek, when it existed, had a cover article, I'll never forget, on how many black kids who work hard are called acting white by other black kids, which is the ultimate insult. So